Hello again. Okay, so this is part 2 of my trans glossary 101 type thing. Okay, so where did we leave off from? Non-binary sex. Okay, so I am. What I'm about to read out is an excerpt from transanarchism.com, which I have linked to in my very first video. Because Asha can say this a lot more succinctly than I can. Sex is no more an immutable binary than is gender. There are intersex people who are born with non-binary genitalia, as I've already mentioned. There are people with hormonal anomalies. In fact, hormone levels vary widely within the categories of cis male and cis female. Chromosomes too vary. If you thought XX and XY were the only two possible combinations, then you have some serious Googling to do. In addition to variations like XXY, XXYY, or X, sometimes cis people find out that they are genetically the opposite of what they thought they were. That is, a typical cis man can be an XX, a normal cis woman can be an XY. The entire concept of sex is simply a way of attaching something social, gender, to bodies. This being the case, I believe the most sensible way to look at the question of sex now is this. A male body is a body belonging to a male, that is, someone who identifies as male. A female body is a body belonging to a female, that is, somebody who identifies as female. Genderqueer bodies belong to folks that are genderqueer. Androgynous bodies belong to androgynes, and so on and so forth. So, there you go. That man puts it a lot better than I do. So, but that's basically what I was getting at, is earlier, that even though I have a vagina, as far as I'm concerned, it's a male vagina and it's mine. And, you know, and of course it exists because, well, I exist. So, I've already touched on sex assigned at birth. So, you're usually either assigned male or female at birth. You'll see this shortened to various acronyms like CAMAB, which is coercively assigned male at birth, and CAFAB, and then there's like AFAB and so on. You'll be able to work them out when you see them. Once you understand the various letters, that you'll see them in various incarnations, so you'll be able to get it. Okay, so dysphoria. What is dysphoria? Body dysphoria for me is an intense, really intense, strong dislike of particular body parts, that it's not right. And it's very distressing. For example, I get quite bad dysphoria about my chest, which I find very distressing, because my chest does not look like the way that I think it should look. And that's basically dysphoria in a nutshell. Dysphoria is not just limited to trans people though. I mean, people with eating disorders and stuff have dysphoria as well about their own bodies. So, for example, they'll perceive themselves to be really, really fat when they're not, or they'll see loads of and they'll see fat and think, oh my god, that's not right, blah blah blah, and they'll find it really distressing. And it's kind of like, and it's the same thing, you know, trans, you'll see particular body parts, usually in relation to your primary and secondary sex characteristics. So basically your genitalia and anything else that's typically associated with one of the binary sexes. you get really bad dysphoria about it, and you know, you don't feel like your body is right, and it's really, really distressing. It's horrible. For me personally, it causes a lot of anxiety, and a lot of like self-hatred and things. So yeah, there's probably a lot better explanations of what dysphoria is online, but if you just Google it, you'll find various explanations of what dysphoria is, and it will describe it a lot better than I could. Okay, so GRS or SRS. GRS is genital reconstruction surgery, and this SRS, same thing, sexual reassignment surgery or sexual reconstruction surgery. Basically, if you go and get if you go for a full medical transition, basically, so you might you'll have say a vaginoplasty or I can't remember the technical terms. Basically, you go get bottom surgery. That's all that means. Again, this is optional. I personally don't feel a great need to do it. Some people do, others don't. It's again really up to the person. So you know, it's entirely up to you. And if you don't get it done, it doesn't make you any less of whatever you identify as. Hokey pokey. Transphobia. If you're a trans person, you'll have probably experienced this in varying degrees. Transphobia is any kind of hate or violence or something against somebody who's trans. It could be slurs like tranny or she-male or he-she or anything like that. That's quite offensive, so you know, don't use it because that is really, really, really offensive. Though I have met some trans people and a couple of transvestites in my time who quite freely use the word tranny to describe themselves, and that's fine, you know, if that's a word you identify with and works for you, then great, but in general, don't use it with anybody else unless, you know, you sort of take you in that direction. Yeah, transphobia is basically just a hate and fear of trans people, and that can, you know, like I said, result in, you know, verbal, physical abuse, like slurs, people getting beaten up in the street because they're trans, sometimes people get raped because they're trans, and all that sort of stuff. So it's horrible, and I've been on the receiving end of some verbal and physical abuse before, just through being trans, and it's crap, and I don't understand why personally, but yeah, so you know, we're just like everybody else. We're just trying to live our lives, get by, do what we can to live and survive and be happy, just like everybody else. So Cissexism is basically oppression against this is a term I'm a little bit fuzzier about and still kind of have to get to grips with, but from what I can discern so far, Cissexism is basically it is oppression of trans people or non-binary people, and it's, from what I can gather in a nutshell, it's when people think things like, if you were born with these body parts, you are this forever. You have no choice, or you know, things like that. So again, you might be better off googling that one. You'll probably you'll probably get a better answer from Google than you will me on Cissexism. But yeah, it's basically just a lot of oppression, for oppression of trans people, things of that nature. Okie doke. Pronouns and why misgendering is bad. Okay, again, I've lifted another passage from a really awesome trans glossary by Erin, which is, again, I linked to in my very first video on FetLife, so I shall read that out because, again, that pretty much sums it up. Okay, asking about people's pronouns if you do not hold on, sorry, I've written that out wrong. I apologise, I'll start again. Okay, so yeah, this is about asking about people's pronouns. If you do not know somebody's pronoun, be tactful. Until you get a chance to talk with them, either try to avoid pronouns altogether or use gender neutral, sort of they, them, their. Once you're involved in a more personal conversation, it's usually okay to ask, like, do you have a preferred pronoun? Just don't go up to the only gender non-conforming person in the room and publicly ask their pronoun, and don't assume that the answer is always going to be he or she. Yeah, so there's a few different gender neutral pronouns. There's like Z and Zan, Z and what else? Sorry, I'm tired, so like I'm trying desperately to remember. There's like here and there's, again, Google will tell you. I will try and write a little annotation box with them in, the various ones. Yeah, so generally it's always good practice to at the right time, to at the right sort of tactful point, to ask somebody what their pronouns are if you're not sure, rather than just make a blind guess, because you probably will get it wrong. Not always, but most of the time when people try and guess mine, they usually lump with female ones, and which is so totally wrong. So yeah, and some people, like, it's complicated because some people really don't like when you ask them their pronouns and things, especially if somebody's like stealth or whatever. So yeah, basically you just kind of have to gauge that one by person, and yeah, and also if you make a mistake, then just correct yourself and carry on. Don't make a big deal out of it or anything else. Just correct yourself, quickly apologise, and then just continue the conversation. Honestly, the amount of times I wish people would do that with me and they don't, it's really fucking irritating. But yeah, so that's kind of the basics in terms of wording, and I do have a couple more things to add, but in terms of like important words to know, that kind of covers everything. Okay, so misgendering and why it's bad. I shall continue from that tangent. Misgendering somebody can be really invalidating to that person. For example, like now when I said I want to get called she a lot, it's really irritating. It is, because it does make me feel really invisible.